Shadow's tail wagged 3 times when Marcus Thompson knelt down, the same way it wagged every morning when Marcus filled his food bowl. But this wasn't their kitchen. This was a warehouse on Chicago's South Side, 11 o'clock at night, and Shadow was chained to a rusted pole. "I'm sorry, boy," Marcus whispered, counting the $1,500 bills in his hand. "My daughter needs surgery money more than you need me." Shadow licked Marcus's palm. Forgiveness without understanding. The buyer laughed from the shadows. "This one's perfect for bait work, too gentle to fight back." Marcus walked away. Didn't look back. Not when Shadow whimpered. Not when the chain yanked tight. Not when other men emerged with scarred dogs and electric prods. 8 weeks later, Shadow would be found trembling under a rusted car, barely alive. But Marcus's betrayal wasn't the worst thing that happened that year. The worst was still coming. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. The rusted Chevrolet Impala hadn't moved in 3 years. It sat at the end of Maple Street in Oak Park. A fixture nobody noticed anymore, just urban decay waiting for removal. Except today, something underneath it was dying. Shadow pressed his body against the oil-stained concrete, ribs sharp beneath matted fur. His left hind leg bent at an angle nature never intended. Swollen to twice its normal size, the smell of infection was sweet and rotten, like fruit left too long in summer heat. He'd counted 68 hours since he'd eaten anything but rainwater. His body was shutting down. Fever burned behind his eyes, turning the world soft and distant. 3:47 p.m. Tommy Williams walked his usual route home from school, 17 minutes, 4 turns. Every day, identical. Routine was survival for a 10-year-old whose brain processed the world differently than everyone else's. But today, something broke the pattern. A sound, weak, almost human, coming from beneath the Chevy. Tommy stopped, set down his backpack, knelt on the sidewalk, and peered into the shadows. 2 amber eyes stared back, wide with terror and something else. Tommy recognized it because he'd seen it in his own bathroom mirror every morning before school. The look of someone who'd stopped expecting rescue. "Hi," Tommy whispered. "I'm not going to hurt you." Shadow's growl came from somewhere deep, a warning his body was too weak to enforce. Every instinct screamed danger. Humans meant pain, always, but this small human smelled different. Like cafeteria milk and new pencils and loneliness, like someone who understood what it meant to hide. Tommy extended his hand, slow and careful. "It's okay. I know what it's like when nobody—" Shadow's teeth found air. Not flesh he'd tried to miss, but the sudden movement made Tommy jerk backward. His head cracked against the concrete sidewalk. Blood, immediate and bright red, streaming from a gash above Tommy's left eyebrow. Shadow's heart shattered. "I heard him. I heard the only one who came." "Tommy." A woman's voice, sharp with panic. Mrs. Patricia Brennan from 3 doors down rushed over. "Saw the blood. Saw the dog. Oh my God, don't move, sweetie." She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking. "Yes. 911. There's been an animal attack. A child is bleeding. We need an ambulance and animal control, immediately." Animal control. Shadow understood those words the way prey understands the shadow of wings overhead. The shelter, the cage, the final room where dogs went in but never came out. He tried to stand, but his infected leg buckled. The world tilted sideways. "That dog is dangerous," Mrs. Brennan said to the growing cluster of neighbors. "It needs to be taken away before someone else gets hurt." Tommy sat up, blood soaking his collar. His mother, Susan Williams, was running down the sidewalk now, face white with fear. But Tommy didn't cry. He stared at Shadow with those careful, calculating eyes that miss nothing. "He didn't hurt me," Tommy said quietly. "I scared him." "Tommy, you're bleeding." "I scared him." "Mom." Louder now, urgent. "Look at him, really, look." Susan looked, saw the dog's protruding ribs, the ruined leg, the way he trembled not with aggression but with fever and starvation and bone-deep terror. "The ambulance is 5 minutes out," Mrs. Brennan announced. Animal control said 45 minutes. Shadow's breathing was shallow, rapid, even from 6 feet away. Susan could see the inflammation radiating from his leg like heat waves. She'd been a nurse before Tommy was born. She knew what sepsis looked like. This dog had hours, not days. And in 45 minutes, animal control would arrive, would see the blood on her son, would see a dangerous stray, would take Shadow somewhere he'd never leave. Tommy grabbed his mother's hand, his grip fierce despite the blood still flowing. "Mom, we have to save him. Now." Susan looked at her injured son, at the dying dog, at her watch. She had 3 minutes to make a decision that would change 3 lives forever. She didn't know one of those lives would be her own. "Get towels from my car," Susan said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We're taking him to Dr. Peterson." Mrs. Brennan stepped forward. "Susan, that dog attacked. He's dying. Tommy's cut needs stitches, but he's stable. The dog has maybe hours." Susan was already moving toward the Shadow, hands outstretched and non-threatening. "Tommy, talk to him. Keep him calm." Tommy crawled closer, ignoring the blood dripping into his eye. "I have 13 minutes to trust you, and you have 13 minutes to trust me." 13. The number Shadow had learned to count in that warehouse. The seconds between laughter and pain. Hearing it from this boy's mouth felt like a door opening in a wall he'd thought was solid. Shadow let them lift him. Let them wrap him in towels that smelled like laundry detergent and safety. Let himself hope, just for a moment, that the world contained more than teeth and fear. The animal control dispatcher's voice crackled from Mrs. Brennan's phone. "Unit is 38 minutes out." They had 38 minutes before everything got worse. Dr. Rachel Peterson's emergency clinic was 12 minutes away. Susan drove, while Tommy sat in back with Shadow's head in his lap, whispering about German shepherds he'd researched online, intelligence rankings, herding instincts, loyalty that ran deeper than bone. Shadow's fever spiked. His breathing turned ragged. "Faster, Mom!" Susan pressed the accelerator. Dr. Peterson met them at the door, took one look at Shadow, and her professional composure cracked. "Get him on the table, now." The examination took 4 minutes. Each one aged doctor. Peterson visibly. Multiple old fractures that healed incorrectly. Extensive scarring consistent with... She stopped. Looked at Susan with something like dread. "This is a bait dog. The pattern is unmistakable." "What does that mean?" Tommy asked. "It means I'm legally required to report this to authorities. Fighting dog cases have to be documented for criminal prosecution." Susan's stomach dropped. "But he's the victim." "I know, but the law doesn't differentiate until an investigation is complete." Dr. Peterson pulled off her gloves, frustration evident in every movement. "If I report this now, Shadow becomes evidence. He'll be held in animal control custody pending investigation. Given his condition and the blood on Tommy, they'll likely recommend euthanasia." "No." Tommy's voice was flat, absolute. And if you don't report it, Susan asked, I lose my license, 20 years of practice, gone. Doctor. Peterson looked at Shadow, still trembling on the examination table. But that's not the immediate problem. He needs surgery within 2 hours. The infection has spread to his bloodstream. Without intervention, he'll go into septic shock. Then operate, Susan said. I can't, not legally, not until his status is cleared. Doctor, Peterson's voice cracked. My hands are tied until we can prove he's a victim, not a threat. The door burst open. Robert Williams stood there, still in his work clothes, face flushed from running. He saw Tommy's blood-soaked shirt first, then the dog. Absolutely not. Whatever you're thinking, Susan, no. Robert, that dog attacked our son. Dad, I scared him. Tommy stood, positioning himself between Robert and Shadow. There's a difference. Robert looked at the gash on Tommy's forehead. Already swelling, 3 stitches, minimum. You're bleeding because of that animal. I'm bleeding because I moved too fast and he was terrified. Tommy's hands were shaking, but his voice stayed level. He tried to miss me. He could have bitten my hand. He didn't. Susan touched Robert's arm. We have a bigger problem. Doctor, Peterson can't operate until we prove Shadow's a victim. We need the officer who ran the raid on the fighting ring. What raid? When? We don't know, Doctor. Peterson checked her watch. But I'll give you 90 minutes. If you can get an officer to vouch that this dog was rescued from a fighting operation, I can proceed with surgery as a rescued animal rather than a potential threat. Robert pulled out his phone. Chicago PD, which precinct handles animal fighting? The next hour was a blur of transferred calls and dead ends. Nobody at Chicago PD had records of a raid matching the timeline. FBI Animal Cruelty Task Force put him on hold for 17 minutes. Cook County Animal Control had no documentation. Shadow's breathing grew more labored. His gums were turning pale. Tommy sat on the floor beside the examination table, not touching Shadow but close enough to matter. He studied every scar, every mark, every story written in pain on the dog's body. Then he saw it. On Shadow's left flank, hidden beneath matted fur, a brand mark. Clean lines, deliberate. The letter M. Mom, Tommy's voice was strange. This isn't a scar from fighting. Someone burned this into him. Doctor, Peterson came over, parted the fur carefully. Her face went white. Oh, God. What? Susan asked. I know whose dog this is. Doctor. Peterson stepped back from the table, hand over her mouth. The M brand, Marcus the Mauler Kingsley. He marks his animals like livestock. Who is he? The biggest dog-fighting operator in Chicago. FBI raided him 8 weeks ago, but he walked in sufficient evidence. Doctor. Peterson's hands were shaking now. And if I'm right, if this is really one of Kingsley's dogs, she looked at Susan, then Robert, then Tommy. You're all in danger. Kingsley doesn't let his property go, ever, and that brand mark, she touched Shadow's flank gently. That's not just a scar. It's a signature. The man who left it has killed for less than a dog before. Doctor. Peterson's hand trembled as she scrolled through her phone. There's one person who might help. Officer James Reeves led the raid on Kingsley's operation. If anyone can vouch for Shadow, it's him. She handed Robert a phone number. Robert dialed. 3 rings, 4. On the 5th, a tired voice answered. Reeves. Officer Reeves. My name is Robert Williams. My son found a German Shepherd with a Kingsley brand mark. Doctor. Peterson said you led the raid. Silence. Long enough that Robert thought the call had dropped. Then, "What does the dog look like?" Robert described Shadow, the black and tan coat, the torn ear, the mangled hind leg. Another pause. When Reeves spoke again, his voice was thick. "I remember that dog. He ran into the storm during the raid. We searched for 2 hours, couldn't find him." A shaky breath. "I've thought about him every night for 8 weeks. He's here, he's dying. I'm on my way." The line went dead. "Doctor," Peterson made a decision. "I'm starting prep for surgery now. If Reeves confirms what I think he will, we'll already be ahead." "And if he doesn't?" Susan asked. "Then I lose my license, but I didn't become a vet to let animals suffer because of paperwork." She looked at Shadow, still trembling on the table. "This dog has been through enough bureaucratic cruelty." 35 minutes later, Officer James Reeves burst through the clinic door. He was 42, graying at the temples, with the kind of face that had seen too much and couldn't forget any of it. He went straight to the examination room window, looked at Shadow through the glass. His eyes reddened immediately. "That's him. That's definitely him." Reeves pressed his palm against the window. "We found 14 dogs that night. 3 were bait dogs. The other 2 didn't survive their injuries. When this one ran..." He stopped, collected himself. "I thought he was dead. I was sure of it." "Doctor," Peterson brought out forms. "I need you to document that Shadow was a victim, not a perpetrator." Reeves signed without hesitation. Every page, every waiver, every legal protection the Williams family needed. "What happened to Kingsley?" Robert asked. "Walked free. His lawyers got the case thrown out on procedural grounds. Evidence chain of custody issues." Reeves's jaw tightened. "But this dog, these scars, they're evidence, real evidence, if you're willing. I can build a case that'll actually stick." "What would that require?" "Eventually, Shadow would need to testify. The scars tell a story. The brand mark is physical proof of ownership in an illegal operation." Reeves looked uncomfortable. "It would mean bringing him back to the warehouse, letting a forensic vet document everything, facing Kingsley in court." Susan's breath caught. "Would that hurt him psychologically?" "Probably." Reeves's honesty was brutal. "But it would save hundreds of other dogs, maybe thousands." "We'll think about it," Robert said. "Right now, we just need him to survive." The surgery took 3 hours. Tommy refused to leave the waiting room. He sat cross-legged on the floor, touching the corner of a magazine 3 times. Over and over. His ritual for when the world felt too big and scary. Robert sat beside him. "You know we can't keep a dog this size in our house. Not long term." "Yes, we can, Tommy." "Dad, look at me." Tommy turned, made eye contact rare and deliberate. "I've never asked you for anything. Not really. I don't ask for friends because I can't make them. I don't ask for parties because they're too loud. I don't ask for normal because I know I'm not." His voice stayed level, but his hand shook. "I'm asking for Shadow." Robert looked at Susan. She nodded. "Okay," Robert said quietly. "Shadow comes home." "Doctor." Peterson emerged at 7 p.m., exhausted but smiling. "He made it. The leg is saved. He'll need months of physical therapy and he'll probably always limp, but he'll walk." Tommy was allowed into recovery. Shadow lay on a padded table, eyes half open, breathing steadily. When he saw Tommy, his tail moved just once, weak but intentional. Tommy touched Shadow's head gently. "I told you. We had 13 minutes to trust each other. We made it." 2 weeks later, Shadow came home. The Williams house in Oak Park had never contained anything larger than a cat, but they converted the screened porch into a recovery room. Soft bedding, water bowls, toys Tommy had carefully researched for anxiety-prone dogs. Shadow stepped through the door and stopped, looked around. This was the first time since Marcus's betrayal that he'd been inside a home. Tommy sat on the floor. Shadow limped over, lay down with his head in the boy's lap. "You're safe now," Tommy whispered. That night, Shadow slept without nightmares for the first time in 8 weeks. Susan was checking email before bed when she saw it. No subject line, sender anonymous. The message was 3 sentences. "You have something that belongs to Mr. Kingsley. Return it or regret it." Attached was a photo of their house, taken from across the street. The metadata showed it was taken that afternoon today while they were home. Susan ran downstairs, checked the locks, looked out the front window. A black SUV sat at the end of Maple Street. As she watched, its headlights flicked on, then off, a signal. The SUV pulled away slowly. Susan called Reeves. It rang 6 times. Went to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. It was 11 p.m. Where was he? She didn't know that at that exact moment. Officer Reeves was staring at his phone, watching it ring, unable to answer, because Marcus Kingsley sat across from him in a dark parking lot, holding a gun. 12 hours earlier, Officer James Reeves sat in his car outside a shuttered grocery store on the south side, phone in hand, staring at a text message he'd received an hour ago. "Your son, my evidence. Let's talk." Daniel Reeves was 16 years old, smart kid, good grades, college prospects. 6 months ago, he'd made one mistake, accepted $200 to photograph a dog fight for social media promotion. Kingsley had been grooming him ever since. More money, more jobs, more evidence. By the time Daniel tried to quit, Kingsley owned him completely. Photos, videos, timestamps enough to charge Daniel as an accomplice to felony animal cruelty. Reeves had known, had tried to extract his son quietly, had agreed to lead the raid on Kingsley's operation but ensure the evidence chain had just enough procedural errors to let Kingsley walk. The deal was simple. Kingsley goes free. Daniel's involvement disappears. Reeves had lived with that guilt every day since, especially the guilt about Shadow, the one dog who'd escaped, who Reeves had genuinely searched for, who he'd genuinely mourned. When Robert Williams called about a German Shepherd with Kingsley's brand, Reeves had felt something like redemption, a chance to save the one he'd failed. But Kingsley had other plans. Now Reeves sat in the dark, waiting, knowing this conversation would destroy whatever remained of his soul. Kingsley's black SUV pulled up. The man himself got out tall, lean, expensive suit that didn't match the South Side surroundings. He slid into Reeves's passenger seat like they were old friends. "Heard you helped a family adopt my dog. That dog is a victim, not your property." Kingsley smiled. "I don't care about the dog, James. I care about you keeping your mouth shut." He pulled out a tablet, showed Reeves a video file. Daniel's face, clearly visible, holding a camera at a fight. "One anonymous tip to the FBI, and your son's looking at 2 years minimum. He's a kid. He made a mistake, and you made several. The difference is, I'm offering you a way out." Kingsley leaned back. "The Williams family has a living witness. That dog can be traced back to my operation. Can't let that happen." Reeves's blood went cold. "What do you want? Bring me the dog. Tell them it's for identification purposes at the station. Simple. Clean. And then what? You kill him. What I do with my property isn't your concern." Kingsley's voice hardened. "You have a choice, officer. Your badge and your son's freedom. Or your conscience and his prison sentence. Which matters more?" Reeves looked at his hands. Hands that had sworn to protect. Hands that had failed Shadow once already. "I need time to think. You have until morning. After that, I make the call about Daniel." Kingsley got out of the car. "Choose wisely. James, dogs die every day. Sons don't get second chances." The next morning, Reeves arrived at the Williams house at 9 a.m., wearing his uniform, carrying the weight of his decision in every step. Susan answered the door. "Officer Reeves, is everything okay?" "Actually, yes." "Good news." The lie tasted like poison. "We've apprehended Kingsley. Need Shadow to come down to the station for a scent identification lineup. Standard procedure." Robert came to the door. "Is it safe?" "Completely. I'll be with him the entire time. 30 minutes, tops." Tommy appeared behind his parents, Shadow at his side. The dog had gained 5 pounds in 2 weeks. His coat already shinier, his eyes brighter. Tommy stared at Reeves with that unnervingly direct, autistic gaze. "I don't want Shadow to go." "Tommy, Officer Reeves saved Shadow," Robert said. "We can trust him." Susan looked uncertain. "What about that email, the threat? Probably just internet trolls who saw the local news coverage. I'll have patrol cars watch your house while we're gone." Reeves managed to smile. "Shadow will be back before lunch." Tommy knelt beside Shadow, buried his face in the dog's fur. "You come back, okay, promise." Shadow licked Tommy's face, tail wagging. The boy who'd shown him kindness. The boy who'd given him a home. Reeves looked away. They put Shadow in Reeves's SUV. The dog sat calmly in the back, trusting. That trust was a knife in Reeves's chest. He drove away from the Williams house. Shadow watching Tommy through the rear window until the boy disappeared from view. Reeves didn't drive toward the police station. He drove south, toward the industrial district, toward the abandoned warehouse where Kingsley was waiting. His phone rang. "Daniel." "Dad, where are you? I heard Kingsley talking to his guys. They're planning something today." Reeves's hands tightened on the wheel. "I know, son. I'm fixing it." "Fixing what, Dad? What did you do?" The realization in Daniel's voice was devastating. "Oh, God, you made a deal with him. For me." Daniel's voice cracked. "Dad, stop. Whatever you're doing, stop. I'd rather go to jail than have you become like him." Reeves slammed the brakes. The SUV skidded to a stop on an empty road. Shadow barked, sensing the panic. Reeves turned around, looked at the dog in the back seat, at the scars, at the healing leg, at the trust in those amber eyes. "I'm sorry," Reeves whispered. I almost... He couldn't do this. Wouldn't do this." He reached for his phone to call Robert, to confess everything, to find another way. 2 black SUVs appeared from side streets, boxing him in, Kingsley's men. Reeves grabbed his service weapon, but they were faster. 5 men with guns, surrounding his vehicle. Shadow, run. Reeves threw open the back door. Shadow leaped out, started running despite his injured leg, faster than Reeves had thought possible. A tranquilizer dart hit Shadow mid-stride. The dog stumbled, tried to keep going, managed 20 more feet before collapsing in the street. Reeves lunged from his car. Someone hit him from behind hard enough to knock him down but not out. He watched through blurred vision as Kingsley himself walked up, picked up Shadow's unconscious body. "Appreciate the delivery, officer." Kingsley smiled down at Reeves, "though your timing could have been better." Another blow to Reeves's head. Darkness. When he woke, he was alone on the roadside, hands zip-tied behind his back. His phone lay smashed nearby. A passing driver stopped, called 911, freed him. Reeves borrowed the driver's phone, called Robert with shaking hands. "Officer Reeves, where's Shadow? I'm sorry." The words came out broken. "I'm so sorry. I destroyed everything." "What happened? Where's Shadow?" Reeves couldn't breathe. "Kingsley has him. My son was involved in the fighting ring. Kingsley was blackmailing me. I was supposed to deliver Shadow, but I couldn't. I tried to stop. They took him anyway." "Where did they take him?" "I don't know. Kingsley changes locations every fight." Reeves was crying now. A 42-year-old police officer sobbing into a stranger's phone. "But there's a championship fight tonight at 10 p.m. Shadow won't be killed outright. He'll be used as the main event." "Main event? A death match? Shadow versus Brutus, Kingsley's undefeated champion." Reeves checked the car clock at 4:15 p.m. "If we don't find that warehouse by 10 o'clock tonight, Shadow dies in the ring, and it's my fault, all of it." Silence on the other end. Then Robert's voice, colder than Reeves had ever heard. "You used our trust to deliver Shadow to death. I know. I'm the worst kind of cop. But please, let me fix this. How you don't even know where they are. I'll find them. I swear to God, I'll find them." Robert hung up. Reeves sat on the roadside, covered in blood and shame, watching the sun descend toward the Chicago skyline. He had less than 6 hours to save a dog he'd betrayed twice, and absolutely no idea where to start. 4:30 p.m. Williams' home. Reeves arrived at their door with blood dried on his temple and guilt etched into every line of his face. Susan opened the door, saw him, and slapped him hard. The crack echoed through the quiet street. "Where is he?" "I don't know." Reeves's voice was hollow. "I tried to stop it. I swear I tried." Robert pushed past Susan. "You used us. You used our son's trust to hand Shadow over to the man who tortured him. My son was being blackmailed. Kingsley had evidence that would send Daniel to prison. I thought..." Reeves stopped. "There's no excuse. I was supposed to be better than this." Tommy stood in the doorway, utterly still, not crying, just staring at Reeves with an expression that was somehow worse than anger. "You lied," Tommy said simply. "Shadow trusted you. I trusted you. We don't do that easily." The words destroyed Reeves more effectively than the slap had. "FBI," Robert said. "Phone already out. We call them now." Agent Sarah Morrison answered on the third ring. Robert explained everything: the kidnapping, Kingsley, the 10 p.m. fight. "Mr. Williams, we've been tracking Kingsley for 2 years. He's a ghost. Changes locations constantly. Uses encrypted communications. Keeps no paper trail. But you raided him 8 weeks ago, and he vanished. New identity, new networks, new operations." Morrison's frustration was evident. "Without a specific location, we can't help in time." Robert hung up, looked at Susan. "FBI is useless." The room fell silent except for the kitchen clock ticking, each second bringing Shadow closer to death. Tommy stood frozen, staring at nothing. His hands began moving, touching the doorframe corner, counting under his breath. 13, 13, 13. Susan knelt beside him. "Tommy, honey, talk to me." 13, 13, 13. Faster now, more urgent. His whole body started rocking. He's having a meltdown, Susan said to Robert. The stress is too much, but Tommy grabbed his mother's arm. Grip fierce. Shadow counted to 13, between the laughing and the pain. He told you what? Tommy ran upstairs. Returned with a stack of drawings he'd made over the past 2 weeks. Pencil sketches of Shadow from every angle. Obsessively detailed the way only Tommy's autistic focus could achieve. One drawing showed Shadow's face in extreme close-up, and reflected in his eyes, tiny but perfect, was a building. Shadow showed me, in his eyes. When I first found him, Tommy pointed to the reflection. This building, 13 windows going up, he was counting them, to survive. Reeves leaned over, hands shaking. I know this building, Southside Industrial District abandoned textile factory. But there are 30 abandoned buildings in that district. Robert checked his watch. 5 hours until the fight. We search all 30. Kingsley has lookouts, Reeves said. If they see police presence, the fight scatters. Shadow disappears. We get one chance. Susan's mind raced through impossible calculations. 30 buildings. 5 hours. No backup. We split up, she said. Cover more ground. Reeves pulled up a map on his phone, marked the buildings. 2 teams. Robert and I take the northern section, Susan. You and Tommy take southern. I'm coming, said a voice from the doorway. Daniel Reeves stood there. 16 years old. Face pale but determined. This is my fault. Let me help. I know Kingsley's guys. I can identify the warehouse if we see activity. Reeves started to object. Saw his son's expression. Stopped. Some debts could only be paid by those who owed them. Meanwhile, Shadow's POV. Shadow woke in a cage. The smell hit him before his vision cleared. Blood. Fear, death, familiar, horrifying. He was back. The warehouse looked different but felt the same. Concrete floors stained dark, cages lining the walls, the distant sound of men's voices, casual and cruel. In the cage across from him sat the largest pit bull Shadow had ever seen. 85 pounds of muscle and scars. Brutus, the champion. Shadow's instincts screamed to cower, to submit, to survive. But something had changed in 2 weeks with Tommy. He'd remembered what it felt like to stand tall. Brutus didn't growl, just looked at Shadow with eyes that held too much intelligence. Too much sadness. You're the bait dog, Brutus said in the language dogs speak, scent and posture, and small sounds humans never hear. The one who survived. You're the champion, Shadow replied. I don't want to be. Brutus's voice was tired. They have my puppies. 5 of them. Born 3 months ago. Every time I fight, they bring one out. Tell me if I don't win, they'll... His voice broke. So I win. Shadow understood. Both prisoners. Both slaves to love. I won't fight you, Shadow said. You have to. Or they'll kill someone you love too. I can smell it on you. The boy. The one with the careful hands. Shadow thought of Tommy. Tommy's promises. Tommy's trust. Then we both lose, Shadow Sir said quietly. Kingsley appeared outside the cages, grinning. Gentlemen, tonight's main event, the survivor versus the champion. Odds are 50-1 against the German Shepherd. He laughed. But I've seen miracles happen. Shadow's cage door opened. Hands grabbed him, dragged him toward a makeshift ring in the warehouse center. 50. 60 people were gathering. Money changing hands, phones recording. Shadow searched for an exit, saw none, guards at every door. Tommy, he thought. I promised I'd come back. 7:00 p.m. The search. 2 teams. 30 buildings. Shrinking time. Building after building revealed nothing. Empty shells. Homeless encampments. Drug dens. But no dogfight. By 8:15 p.m., they'd checked 13 locations, 0 results. Robert's phone rang. Agent Morrison got an anonymous tip, warehouse on Archer Avenue. Could be legitimate. Could be a trap. Reeves checked the map. 8 of our remaining targets are on Archer. Still no specific address, Morrison said. They kept searching. Building 14 empty. Building 15 locked tight. No signs of life. Tommy sat in Susan's car. Hands pressed against the window, touching the glass 3 times repeatedly. His ritual for unbearable stress. They passed Building 18, just another abandoned factory among dozens. Stop, Tommy said suddenly. Susan braked. What? Tommy got out of the car before she could stop him. Walked toward the building they'd just passed. Tommy, we already. 13 windows. Tommy pointed at the vertical row. But that's not why. He stood on the sidewalk, closed his eyes, breathed deeply. Mom, I smell shadow. Susan's heart lurched. Honey, that's not possible from I smell him. Tommy's voice cracked. Shadow smells like rain and metal and fear and that medicine Dr. Peterson used. That building smells like shadow. Susan looked at the building. It looked exactly like 5 others they'd already checked. No cars, no lights, no movement. She called Robert. Tommy thinks he found it. Thinks. Susan looked at her son's face. The absolute certainty that she'd learned to trust, even when it defied logic. He's sure. We're 12 minutes away. Susan checked her watch. 8:45 p.m. 1 hour and 15 minutes until Shadow died. Tommy stood staring at the building, counting windows. 1, 2, 3, 13. He's in there, Mom. He's counting too. I know he is. Susan had to choose trust her son's impossible claim that he could smell one specific dog from 50 yards away through concrete walls, or keep searching the remaining buildings and potentially miss a shadow entirely. She had 15 minutes to decide before Robert arrived. Shadow had 15 minutes until they dragged him into the ring. Susan looked at Tommy, then at the building, then back at her son. Do you swear? She whispered. Tommy met her eyes. I swear on Shadow's life, he's in there. 8:50 p.m. Outside the building, Reeves, Robert, and Daniel arrived 8 minutes later. Reeves surveyed the building, dark, quiet, seemingly abandoned. Could be, he said cautiously, but it could also be empty. If this is wrong and we waste 20 minutes breaching an empty warehouse, Shadow dies while we're searching the wrong place, Robert finished. Susan looked at Tommy. Her son stood absolutely still. Nostrils flared, processing sensory information his brain cataloged with photographic precision. He's certain, Susan said. Certain, based on what smell from this distance. Robert's engineer mind rejected it. That's not physically possible. Dad, Tommy's voice was calm, factual. Autistic people process sensory input differently. I can hear fluorescent lights from 3 rooms away. I can taste the difference between tap water from different buildings. And I can smell Shadow because I've memorized every molecule of his scent for 2 weeks. He pointed at the building. He's in there. Reeves made the call. Even if he's right, we can't just storm in, 50 people minimum, probably armed, if they see us coming. Kingsley scatters with Shadow and we never find either again. Then we need confirmation, Robert said. Before we commit. Daniel stepped forward. I'll go. Absolutely not. Reeves grabbed his son's arm. Dad, they know me. I can say Kingsley called me for photo work. Get in. Confirm Shadow's there. Get out. Daniel's voice was steady despite his fear. 5 minutes. That's all. Robert looked at Susan, then at Tommy. He's your son, Reeves. I can't tell you what to do, but if it were Tommy and he could help. He left the sentence unfinished. Reeves closed his eyes, opened them. You wear a wire, in and out in 5 minutes. If anything feels wrong, you run. They rigged Daniel with a phone on FaceTime audio. Tucked in his jacket pocket, Reeves would hear everything. 8:52 p.m. Daniel approached the building's side entrance, unlocked a good sign. He slipped inside, following the sound of voices echoing from below. A stairwell descended into basement level. Daniel's whispered narration came through Reeves's phone. Lots of voices, betting sounds. This is it. The basement had been converted into an arena. 60, maybe 70 people crowded around a makeshift ring, money changing hands, alcohol flowing, the atmosphere electric with anticipated violence. Daniel scanned the cages along the walls. Back corner, German Shepherd, black and tan, lying down. Dad, I see him. Shadow's alive. Reeves exhaled, outside. Tommy grabbed his mother's hand, but then a voice cut through the crowd noise. Danny, what are you doing here, Kingsley? Daniel turned, managed to smile. You texted my dad earlier, thought you might need photo work tonight. Kingsley's eyes narrowed. I didn't text you, kid. Daniel's cover was crumbling, he could feel it. You sure? Maybe one of your guys. Kingsley grabbed Daniel's arm, hard. Your dad sent you. Where is he? Outside. Reeves heard the confrontation through the phone. Daniel, get out now. But Kingsley's hand was already at Daniel's collar. Finding the phone, he pulled it out, looked at the screen showing Reeves's contact, smiled. Well. Kingsley smashed the phone under his boot. Bring the boy to the ring. Let him watch what happens when people betray me. The audio went dead. Reeves lunged for his car. Robert grabbed him. You go in there alone. You're dead and Daniel's still trapped. That's my son, and we need a plan. Robert's voice cut through Reeves's panic. How many guards? At least 5 that I saw. Daniel had said. Exits, front and back that I spotted. Susan was already thinking tactically. We can't wait for SWAT. 12-minute response time minimum. Fight starts in 8 minutes. Tommy suddenly spoke. We don't fight, we run. They all looked at him. Kingsley wants the Shadow to fight at 10 p.m. Everyone will be watching the ring. If someone creates a distraction at the front, someone else could get Shadow and Daniel from the back. Robert understood. What distraction? Tommy met his father's eyes. Me. I go to the front door. Say I'm lost. Draw attention. No. Susan's response was immediate and absolute. Mom, Shadow was bait for me when I was scared. Now I'm bait for him. Tommy's voice didn't waver. Fair. You're 10 years old. Shadow survived being bait for 6 weeks. I just need to survive for 5 minutes. Robert crouched to Tommy's level. Son, these are dangerous people. I know, but Shadow's my best friend. Tommy touched Robert's shoulder 3 times, his gesture of deepest certainty. He came back for me every day. Now, I come back for him. As Susan looked at Robert, Both of them caught in the impossible mathematics of parenthood, risk everything to save what mattered most, or play it safe and lose it anyway. There has to be another way, Susan whispered. But the clock showed 8:58 p.m. There wasn't. The plan desperate, reckless, with maybe a 15% chance of success. Tommy enters through the front as a lost kid. While all eyes are on him, Robert and Susan sneak in the back entrance. Grab Shadow and Daniel during the confusion. Reeves calls FBI the moment they're clear. Everyone out before Kingsley realizes. The flaws were obvious. Tommy alone with criminals, Robert and Susan unarmed, if caught, all hostages, but it was the only plan they had. Shadow had a 15% chance to survive every day for 6 weeks. Tommy said quietly, "He made it, so will I." That decided it. 9:00 p.m. Tommy walked to the front door, knocked. A guard opened. "Kid, what the? I'm lost. My dad's car broke down. Can I use your phone?" The guard looked past Tommy to Kingsley across the warehouse. Kingsley's eyes lit with interest. "Let him in." Tommy entered. 60 sets of eyes turned to him. In the back corner cage, Shadow's ears perked up. He saw Tommy, tried to bark through his muzzle. Shadow understood. Tommy had come back, like he'd promised. Kingsley approached Tommy. "What's your name, Tommy?" "I just need to call my dad." Sure, but first, want to see something cool?" "We have dogs." Kingsley led Tommy toward the ring, hand on his shoulder. Behind them, Robert and Susan slipped through the back entrance. They saw Daniel tied to a chair. Unconscious but breathing, saw Shadow's cage 40 feet away. Saw 2 guards stationed between them and their targets. They needed a bigger distraction. 10:00 p.m. An announcer's voice boomed. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's championship, Brutus versus the Survivor." Brutus was dragged into the ring, muzzled and terrified despite his size, and his opponent, the legendary bait dog Shadow. Guards moved toward the Shadow's cage. Tommy screamed, "No, that's my dog." Kingsley froze, looked at Tommy, looked at the back entrance where Robert stood exposed. "It's a setup," Kingsley said coldly. "Lock it down." Guards grabbed Robert and Susan. Tommy was seized by Kingsley himself. Daniel remained unconscious, still tied up. Shadow was still in his cage. The plan had failed completely. Kingsley dragged Tommy to ringside, fury radiating from every movement. Robert and Susan were forced into chairs next to Daniel, zip-tied and helpless. "You people don't quit, do you?" Kingsley's voice was deadly calm. "Fine, let's make this interesting." He looked at Tommy. "Your boy watches the fight. If Shadow survives 10 minutes with Brutus, I let you all go. If Shadow dies..." He smiled. "Well, you'll have front row seats to what happens next." Guards opened Shadow's cage, dragged him toward the ring. Shadow saw Tommy, tried to reach him. Couldn't. Kingsley removed both dogs' muzzles. Shadow and Brutus stood facing each other in the ring. Neither wanted to fight. Both knew they had to. "Begin," Kingsley shouted. The crowd roared. Shadow looked at Tommy one last time. Tommy mouthed, "It's okay. Do what you have to." Shadow had been bait for 6 weeks. Bait dogs don't fight back, but tonight, if he didn't fight, Tommy would die. Shadow had to become the thing he hated most, a fighter. 10:01 p.m. The ring. Shadow and Brutus circled each other. The crowd screamed for blood. Neither dog attacked. "Fight," someone yelled. Kingsley stepped forward, electric prod in hand. He jabbed Shadow's flank. The shock sent pain through Shadow's body. He yelped, stumbled. Brutus flinched. Sympathetic. "You don't fight. I killed a boy first," Kingsley said, pulling a gun from his jacket. He pointed it at Tommy. Tommy didn't cry. Just looked at Shadow and said quietly, "Do what you have to." Shadow lunged at Brutus, but not to kill, to perform. He grabbed Brutus's neck without biting down. Brutus understood instantly. Both dogs had survived by learning what their captors wanted to see. They staged a fight. Shadow snarled, shook his head, as if trying to tear flesh. Brutus twisted, growling, snapping at air. They rolled across the ring in a tangle of fur and noise that looked vicious but avoided real damage. The crowd erupted. Money changed hands faster. Kingsley's attention shifted to the betting. Calculating his take, Brutus whispered in the language only dogs speak, "I have puppies. Cage 7. If you survive, save them." "I will," Shadow promised. They continued their deadly dance. Outside, 10:03 p.m., Reeves sat alone in his vehicle, watching FBI units position themselves 2 blocks away per Agent Morrison's orders. They'd wait for his signal. But waiting meant Daniel stayed trapped, meant Shadow fought for his life. Reeves looked at his badge on the passenger seat. 20 years of service. 20 years of doing the right thing until the moment it mattered most. He left the badge, took nothing else, went in unarmed. The back entrance was unlocked. Robert had managed that much during their failed infiltration. Reeves slipped inside, descended the stairs, saw the arena, saw his son tied to a chair, head bleeding, saw Robert and Susan restrained, saw Tommy standing ringside, Kingsley's gun inches from his head, saw Shadow in the ring, limping badly now. Old injury flaring under stress. Reeves needed a miracle. 10:04 p.m., the ring. 4 minutes into the fight, Shadow's act was becoming reality. His re-injured leg couldn't sustain the performance. Real pain replaced fake aggression. Brutus pulled a strike, but Shadow's dodge was too slow. Teeth grazed his shoulder, accidental but bloody. Tommy watched. Hands clenched so tight his nails drew blood. Robert worked his restraints. The zip ties were tight but not professionally applied. His engineer's mind calculated angles. The chair leg was loose. If he could tip himself toward the guard 6 feet away. He caught Susan's eye, mouthed distraction. Susan understood. She started screaming, "Fire! Fire, the building's on fire." No fire, but chaos. Guards turned. Kingsley spun toward her. "Shut her up." Robert threw his weight sideways. The chair toppled. He crashed into the guard. Chair breaking on impact. His hands came free. He grabbed the key ring from the guard's belt. 10:05 p.m. Daniel Wake's concussion fading. Daniel's eyes opened. Blurred vision cleared enough to see his father at the arena entrance. Parents tied up. Tommy in danger. Shadow bleeding in the ring. This was his fault. All of it. Daniel was still zip-tied to his chair, but he was positioned near the electrical panel. The breaker box maintenance panel exposed because this warehouse was abandoned, unlicensed, illegal. He could reach it with his feet if he stretched. He started kicking. 10:06 p.m. Breaking point 5 minutes elapsed. Brutus was tiring. Shadow was exhausted, legs screaming, breathing ragged. Brutus made his decision. He went down, collapsed as if knocked unconscious, gave Shadow the win. The crowd exploded with shock and excitement. Shadow had survived. Against all odds, the bait dog had defeated the champion. But Kingsley wasn't watching the ring anymore. He was watching the chaos of Susan's fire alarm. Robert's escape attempt. Guards scrambling, his face hardened. "Doesn't matter," Kingsley said. "Shadow wins, but I never honor deals." He pressed the gun against Tommy's temple. "The dog lives. The boy doesn't." Then 07 p.m., everything at once. Daniel's foot connected with the breaker panel. Main power switch. He kicked it down. Every light cut, pitch black, screaming, confusion, bodies moving in darkness. Reeves launched himself toward where Kingsley had been standing. Felt fabric. Grabbed. Tackled. A gunshot exploded. Muzzle flash lit the warehouse for one strobe-like instant. Tommy dove sideways had the bullet missed. Robert reached Susan. Cut her restraints with keys he'd taken. Emergency generator kicked in. Dim lights flickered on. The scene revealed Reeves on top of Kingsley. Fighting for the gun, Kingsley was stronger. Winning. The gun turning toward Reeves's head. Shadow stood at the ring's edge, free to run, free to escape, free to save himself. He saw Reeves, the man who'd betrayed him, losing. Saw Tommy safe with his parents. Shadow had a choice: run to safety, or help the man who'd delivered him to death. 3 seconds to decide. Shadow jumped from the ring, charged Kingsley, bit down on the arm holding the gun. Kingsley screamed. The gun dropped. Reeves recovered, grabbed the weapon, pressed it against Kingsley's head. "Don't move." The front entrance exploded inward. FBI tactical team. Weapons drawn. Everybody down. Agent Morrison led the breach. 47 people arrested. Guards subdued. Kingsley cuffed. 23 dogs rescued from cages, including Brutus, and 5 puppies in cage 7. Morrison approached Reeves. "Hell of a mess." "Yeah, but we got him." Tommy ran to Shadow. The dog limped toward him, collapsed at his feet. Tommy dropped to his knees, wrapped his arms around Shadow's neck. "You kept your promise. You came back." Shadow's tail wagged, weak, but genuine. 10:25 p.m., the Cost Emergency Vet Team arrived. Dr. Peterson herself, called by Morrison. She examined Shadow under portable lights. Her face fell. The leg, the femur, shattered again from the fight. "He needs immediate surgery." Robert's heart sank. How immediate? Tonight. The bone fragments are threatening the artery. Without surgery, he could lose the leg, or worse, infection. Septic shock. Days at most. How much? $8,000. Pins, plates, extensive reconstruction. Robert pulled out his phone, checked their bank account. Medical bills from Tommy's therapies had drained them. Available balance $3,200. "We're short," Robert said quietly to Susan. "Credit cards, maxed from Tommy's treatments. My work could advance. Would take 3 business days minimum. Shadow has hours." They stood in the warehouse, surrounded by police and rescued dogs, and the aftermath of violence, staring at an impossible number. Morrison overhead. "I can make some calls. Fellow agents won't be enough in time." Dr. Peterson said. "She dealt with rescue funding before. We need the money tonight to transport him to the surgical facility and begin." Tommy had been listening. He'd heard every word. He pulled out his phone, opened his banking app, the college fund account his grandmother had set up. The one password he'd memorized by watching his mother type it once. Balance $12,000. His entire future. MIT acceptance letter sitting at home. scholarship that covered tuition but not living expenses. This money was supposed to be his housing, food, books for 4 years. Without it, MIT was impossible. Tommy's finger hovered over the transfer button. Shadow or MIT, his dream or his best friend. He looked at Shadow, bleeding on the warehouse floor. Looked at his parents, doing math that wouldn't work. Looked at Reeves, broken by guilt. Looked at Daniel, crying for a dog he'd helped in danger. Tommy pressed a transfer. $8,000 moved in 3 seconds. He handed the phone to Dr. Peterson. This is for Shadow. From me, Doctor. Peterson's eyes widened. Tommy, this is... Shadow gave up his safety for me. I give up MIT for him. Tommy's voice was steady. Fair. Susan saw the confirmation email on her own phone. Tommy, what did you do? The right thing. That was your future. Tommy looked at his mother with perfect clarity. No. Mom, Shadow is my future. MIT is just college. Robert knelt, put his hands on Tommy's shoulders. Son, Dad, please don't tell me I made a mistake. Tommy's voice finally cracked. Because if you do, I'll know that money is worth more than love, and I don't want to believe that. Robert pulled Tommy into a hug, said nothing. Because what could he say to a 10-year-old who'd just proven he understood sacrifice better than most adults ever would, Doctor? Peterson looked at the phone, at the transfer confirmation, at the boy who'd given everything. Let's save your dog, she whispered. 10:45 p.m. Emergency Veterinary Hospital. Shadow lay on the surgical table under bright lights. Doctor. Peterson worked with 2 assistants, reconstructing a leg that had been shattered twice, once by cruelty, once by courage. The surgery took 3 hours. The Williams family waited in a room that smelled like disinfectant and fear. Tommy sat cross-legged on the floor, touching the corner of a magazine 3 times, over and over. His meditation against anxiety. Robert held Susan's hand. Neither spoke. What was there to say? Their son had bankrupted his future to save a dog they'd known for 2 weeks. And neither of them could say he was wrong. Reeves arrived at midnight, Daniel beside him. The boy's head was bandaged, his father's arm in a sling from where Kingsley had dislocated his shoulder during the fight. You didn't have to come, Susan said. Yes. I did. Reeves sat heavily. His badge was still in his car. He didn't know if he'd ever wear it again. I owe Shadow my life. Literally. He could have run. He saved me instead. Daniel approached Tommy, who still hadn't looked up from his magazine corner. I'm sorry, Daniel said. I helped Kingsley. I took photos of bites. I'm part of the reason Shadow suffered. Tommy finally looked up. But you helped save him tonight. You kicked the breaker. That's what let my dad get free. Doesn't erase what I did before. No, Tommy agreed. But it adds good to the scale. People aren't just one thing. Shadow taught me that. Daniel sat beside Tommy. This teenager and this 10-year-old, both carrying guilt too heavy for their ages. How do you forgive someone? Daniel asked quietly. Tommy thought about it. Shadow forgave your dad tonight. He saved him even after your dad betrayed him. He touched the magazine corner 3 times. If a dog who was hurt can forgive, why can't people? At 2:00 a.m. Doctor. Peterson emerged, exhausted, blood-stained scrubs, but smiling. He made it. The room exhaled collectively. The leg is saved. Pins, plates, Months of physical therapy ahead. He'll probably always limp, but he'll walk, he'll run, he'll live. Tommy asked the only question that mattered: can I see him in the ICU recovery area? Shadow lay in a large cage, sedated but breathing steadily. His left hind leg was wrapped in bandages, a drain tube visible. Tommy pressed his forehead against the cage bars. We made it. Both of us. Shadow's tail moved once, barely, but intentional. 3 weeks later, Cook County Courthouse. Marcus Kingsley's trial lasted 4 days. Federal charges: animal cruelty, racketeering, trafficking, assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder. The prosecution's most powerful evidence walked into the courtroom on 3 legs. Shadow, healed enough to attend, limped down the aisle, led by Tommy. The courtroom went silent. Even the judge leaned forward. Prosecutors presented photographs of Shadow's scars, the brand mark, the healed fractures visible on X-rays. Dr. Peterson testified about injuries consistent with systematic torture. Kingsley sat expressionless in his orange jumpsuit until they brought Shadow close to the evidence table. The dog looked at his former owner. Didn't cower. Didn't growl. Just stood there, tail high, eyes clear. Kingsley's mask slipped. Just for a second, he saw what he'd failed to destroy. Dignity. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts, sentencing 22 years in federal prison. As guards led Kingsley away, he looked back at Shadow one final time. Shadow's tail wagged once, not in forgiveness, but in freedom. Outside the courthouse, a man waited, 50s, weathered face, holding a photo of a little girl, Marcus Thompson, Shadow's original owner. I know I have no right, Marcus said to the Williams family, but I wanted to apologize to Shadow. Robert started to refuse, but Tommy stepped forward. Why did you sell him? My daughter needed surgery, leukemia. I was desperate. Marcus's voice broke. I sold Shadow for $1,500. She died 3 weeks later anyway. The money didn't matter. Nothing mattered. He knelt, and Shadow approached cautiously. Ears back, but tail neutral. I'm sorry, Marcus whispered. You deserved better than me. Shadow sniffed Marcus's hand, remembered. The man who'd fed him as a puppy, the man who'd betrayed him. Shadow's tail wagged, tiny, once. Marcus broke down completely. Tommy touched the man's shoulder. Shadow just taught you something. Forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about grace. The viral moment. Local news covered the trial. Boy sacrifices college fund to save tortured dog. Ran on every Chicago station. The story went viral within hours. 5 million views by morning. A stranger in California started a GoFundMe. Help Tommy get to MIT. 3 days later, $47,000 raised. MIT's admissions office called Robert personally. We've seen what your son did. Or, Tommy's sacrifice exemplifies everything we value. We're offering a full scholarship tuition, housing, living expenses, everything. When reporters asked Tommy about it, his response became the most shared clip. I didn't do it for money or MIT. I did it because Shadow taught me that love isn't about what you get. It's about what you give. 20 million views. #Shadowend. Tommy trending worldwide. Officer Reeves kept his badge. Agent Morrison vouched for him, citing his role in Kingsley's capture. But Reeves started a new program, Second Chance K9, dedicated to rescuing and rehabilitating fighting dogs. Shadow became the program's mascot. Daniel entered therapy and began 200 hours of community service at animal shelters. Rehabilitation, not punishment. Dr. Peterson waived all future veterinary fees for Shadow. That dog gave me back my faith in humans. Brutus and his 5 puppies were adopted by FBI agents who'd participated in the raid. The champion fighter became a gentle family pet. His puppies raised with love instead of violence. 6 months later, Shadow had completed physical therapy. The limp remained a permanent reminder, but it didn't slow him down. He'd gained 20 pounds, his coat glossy, his eyes bright. He was now a certified therapy dog. His first official assignment, Emma Rodriguez, 8 years old, traumatized after being attacked by a neighbor's dog 6 months ago. The Williams' living room had been set up carefully. Emma sat rigid on the couch, her mother beside her. Shadow waited in another room. Tommy explained gently. Shadow was hurt by bad people. Like how you were hurt by that dog. He was scared, like you're scared. But he learned something important. What? Emma's voice was barely audible. Not all people are bad. Not all dogs are bad. Tommy signaled. Susan opened the door. Shadow entered slowly. Didn't approach Emma. Just lay down 10 feet away. Rested his head on his paws. Breathed. 10 minutes passed. Shadow didn't move. Why isn't he coming closer? Emma finally asked. Because he's waiting for you to be ready, Tommy said. What if I'm never ready? Then he'll wait forever. That's what love does. Emma stood, took 1 step, then another, her hand shaking. She reached out, touched Shadow's head. He's so soft, she whispered. Shadow licked her hand once, gentle, patient. Emma giggled the first time since her attack. She sat beside Shadow, and he rested his head in her lap. 2 wounded souls, beginning to heal together. Tommy watched from across the room, knowing exactly what Shadow was doing, because Shadow had done it for him first. Behind them, on the Williams wall, hung a framed photo Tommy and Shadow on the day they'd brought him home. Below it, a quote Tommy had written, "We didn't rescue Shadow, we rescued each other." 1 year after that Trembling dog was found under a rusted Chevy, Shadow had helped 47 children overcome their fears. Each child saw in his scars what Tommy had seen first, proof that broken doesn't mean worthless. The Williams family learned what Shadow knew all along, that love measures itself not in what we receive, but in what we're willing to give. Tommy gave his future for Shadow's life. Shadow gave his safety for Tommy's healing. Both sacrifices became investments that multiplied beyond measure. Marcus Thompson visited every month, volunteering at Reeves's Second Chance K-9 program. His betrayal of Shadow never disappeared, but he spent the rest of his life ensuring no other desperate person would make his mistake. Kingsley served his sentence, but his legacy died the moment Shadow walked out of that warehouse on 3 legs, head high, tail wagging. Because the greatest revenge isn't violence, it's survival, it's thriving. It's becoming everything they said you couldn't be. Shadow taught them all gratitude isn't just feeling thankful. It's being willing to sacrifice for those who sacrificed for you. Family isn't blood, it's who stays when staying is hard. Now I ask you, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Like Shadow was by Marcus. How did you find the strength to trust again?